Hello humans, you can call me Nox, and today I'm really angry at EA. Nice.
Really, I guess all of us could be angry at EA every day. They're not great. But the difference today is that they asked for feedback. When you open Origin, laughably, it'll do that sometimes. And I know that there are a lot of people online who like to troll those answers, and that's cool. Which I feel bad for the person who potentially actually does have to sift through those things, because you know that no matter what they say, nothing is getting changed. And that sucks.
They have absolutely no incentive to change based on this or anything else, but that's very representative of a structural issue. Hello? You don't want to change based on anything that any of your customers say? Why are you asking us for feedback? I could imagine that for EA, it's gotta be really hard to keep track of all of the criticisms that people levy against them. So why shouldn't we just give them one nice little shit gift to open all at once, get it off of my mind, wasn't on theirs to begin with, everybody's happy. Especially when they're making money, I think it's very easy to see problem, Band-Aid. They hate loot boxes. They're surprise mechanics. Every problem that they're facing, they're sort of just changing the verbiage and pretending that this new verbiage isn't a problem when it's exactly the same as what people are calling them out for, just under a different name.
The Sims 4, first of all, is a shell that prepares you to be able to buy other games. It's $39.99. Awesome. Standard edition, nothing fancy. I'm not gonna compare editions. We're gonna just add them all up if you're buying them one by one, like the average person who saves up money for a pack. The fun thing about The Sims 4 is that not only do they have expansion packs that they consider to be considerably large contributions to the game, they have lots of other tiny little stuff and game packs that add not considerable amounts of stuff to the game, if that's what you want. It's kind of cool though, you can actually get mods that add that stuff piece by piece, and you don't have to pay $5.99 for a laundry basket and some socks. Let me grab my calculator. $39.99? $39.99. Wow. Look at that. Look at all of these hypothetical whole-ass other games you can insert into your game framework. Well, I think it can be argued that probably each of these expansions adds just as much as the original game did. Nobody was satisfied with what the original game contained. It didn't contain toddlers when it came out. And in the same way, these packs are missing the framework that would actually make them a playable game. So they've double charged you to play whichever game it was you were looking for. I'm sorry. So for just the expansion packs and the main game, you get $439.89. So even then, if we go back into our game packs, which this is a DLC of a DLC, actually. Once you get your pets, you can pay $10 more to get a smaller pet. We then have one last pack, which is $9.99. I think this is just a different version. Which, you know, that's nice. I'll give them credit for that. But is it worth the $814.59 you have to pay for the game in its entirety?
I'd save up for literally anything else at that point. Today's a new day, I guess I just hold a grudge. It makes sense to charge for these packs when they're continuing to work on a game after launch because they're continuing to pay devs, but I do have to wonder how they're prioritizing their work when they're charging $5 for something that already exists. I'm not saying that anyone has to buy EA's version, and obviously the mods exist for free, but why prioritize something redundant over something cool that has a broader impact on the actual gameplay? I'm not a game developer or a business person. It's just really weird to look at Scott Cawthon and other indie developers who have to be both, and they somehow manage to not only create games, but in some cases, like Scott's, pay fans to make fan games and take on a whole other studio to increase the scope of their projects, entirely without damaging either his brand or the fans' community. It feels like he actually wants these projects and his games to enrich lives. I don't think that FNAF would have had nearly the same appeal if you had to pay for every new night, every new character, every new minigame, because it would have been a game published without passion. The Sims 4, and consequently a lot of EA's other games, feel more like Episode, where they're just waiting to set up a scenario with their fake world that compels you to spend real money again and again and again for diminishing returns.
On the free-to-play side of things, Apex Legends is actually up next on EA's list of latest and greatest, which, to be fair, it's a pretty decent game. I know a couple of people who still play and actually stream it, so I guess I can't be too hard on it. It was made very much to hop on the Battle Royale trend. It did a good job of that at first, but the most important part of a live service game is live service, and they were a little slow on that. It was seems to be the general opinion of players that they prioritized microtransactions a little, but they're now on season 8, and they have maintained some steady player base due to these relatively constant updates. For a lot of people, it was too little too late. They do suffer from server issues. Some customer service feels lacking, which admittedly is pretty common for EA. It's a lot of people find themselves getting banned and not really knowing why, not being able to reach out. And that's really inconvenient when you've poured a lot of money into a service and you have absolutely no knowledge as to why it's been taken away from you. I guess my best hope for Apex Legends is just that EA becomes generally a better publisher and understands better the nature of live service games, the issues that come with them, and how to offer proper customer support for absolutely any of their products. I think that that's important for a live service game, but they don't really have that at all. It is honestly hard to expect positive customer service from a company willing to sell us a garbage-fire downgrade of a game for $60, sneak in unskippable ads a month after launch, and require massive flack to step down. As what I think is a normal-feeling human person, it should be pretty obvious that no one wants their console game to feel like it belongs on a cheap mobile. But, like, we all have phones, right? And speaking of well-known blunders, unfortunately FIFA's next on the list. Even positive reviews are hesitant to encourage the handling of this title. The gameplay as a whole is considered by most people to be a copy and pasted from the previous game, with some changes that enhance and some that hinder the experience. People who do still enjoy the game kind of amusingly fight over what changes do make positive impacts and what changes actually have happened at all. And some people seem to laud the fact that even the tiniest changes were made. I think that people kind of forget that games or even books, movies, any kind of script, whatever, can be literally anything. Absolutely any changes could have been made with this game, but they chose to charge their audience $60 for a full-sized patch when if there's one thing EA and its developers should know by now, it's how to properly implement patches. On top of all of this, Scuds TV on Twitter recently claimed that it takes 916 days of continuous gameplay in FIFA, or £80,000 or about $111,000 to build the ultimate team. And while EA's tried to rebut this, honestly, when you stand there alone lobbying for the great healthiness of loot boxes and microtransactions and grinding away hundreds or thousands of hours of your life for a video game, you lose a bit of your reputation for me. It's definitely the publisher's job to create demand for its products, but like by investing in quality products that people want to buy from them, not by discussing with accountants in weird echo chamber meetings how they can screw those consumers over. FIFA's definitely EA's cash cow. There should never be any question as to whether or not it makes innovation over the last game, because it makes money hand over fist. People shouldn't have to beg for that experience to do more than technically pass the time. I'm glad that people still managed to enjoy this game at all. I'm sure it was made for someone, and it's personally, I think it's great to look past nitpicky shortcomings if you're having an enjoyable time, which awfully hard to look past. EA's shortcomings when the company feels entitled to take up all of their players' time in exchange for one virtual character, then charge them for it, then shame them for not being rewarded by the experience, especially when the company's very willing to take away that account, to take away everything you've purchased, and not communicate with you in any way. In spite of their unwillingness to have a discussion, EA definitely knows what went wrong with the next title. Or at least, they think they do. Star Wars Battlefront 2 was at the time of its release considered almost the big bad of EA's monetization scheme, methods of providing players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. It was estimated by Reddit user The Hotter Potato that it would take 40 hours of gameplay to unlock a single higher tier hero, assuming the player wasn't using any of their free credits to purchase any other microtransactions in the meantime, including character upgrades and items. Listen, EA, we know that video games are your full-time job, but they're not functionally intended to be hour after hours employment. This game, like a lot of other EA titles, was fairly well received gameplay-wise. There is still some viewership out there. I don't blame them for wanting to watch the highlights, though, over grinding that time out themselves. Of course, you could always pay to unlock the heroes. Origin's Play and Play Pro member services, which allow you to pay more money to use EA's platform in the hopes of getting fuller games, come to play a little bit of a role here. New players seem to purchase the most recent edition of the game with all cosmetics, and now complain that the currency systems are completely useless, demonstrating exactly the fact that these mechanics were based on making money first and building a game last. With microtransactions, the game was broken. Once EA learned and removed them, the game was still broken because they had removed the entire foundation. Very few people were willing to support EA at the time of its launch. It seemed like they were artificially inflating their games to encourage people to purchase in-game currencies, whether they had intended to do it or not. Again, I'm glad that some people can enjoy the game. It feels like there's passion in it somewhere, but the usual EA issues have meddled somewhere in the middle. We get tired of looking past rampant greed every time we open a game that we already own. The most ironic thing about the whole debacle is that EA claimed to have identified and solved the root issue here. I somehow doubt that. Case in point, Madden NFL 21. Honestly, I can't force my brain to be passionate about this one, so it's going to be super quick. There just aren't any positives to it. Those vocal about the series are largely in protest of either its unfinished gameplay or EA's policies in general, similarly to FIFA. The fact that it is indeed a football game is one of the largest compliments offered, and even that's only because there was no other football in 2020. Die-hard fans seem to differ from the mob in that they're willing to overlook any monetization schemes, and that's great for them. I'm happy that they're in a place where casual entertainment can milk them for money on a daily basis. Most of us are not. Alright, Anthem gives me a little more energy. Not in a good way, but, good for me. This game was practically dead on arrival with server issues. It seemed to be used as a ploy to sell Origin's oddly tiered members access. Even for those who paid for said access and managed to reach the game found it to be yet another live service that suffered from poor live service, remaining unbalanced for the duration of its existence. As EA saw mass criticism, they acknowledged it and continued to modify the game in the exact opposite fashion as requested. In spite of being so broken that the publisher ultimately gave up on it, you can still both buy the game and the currencies therein. Once again, people should not have to mathematically prove to a company that its products are not fun. It's nigh on impossible to state objectively, but EA has provided reviewers and Redditors with just the ammunition to make it feasible. Standing up and trying to prove that these creative projects are enjoyable is an uphill battle when you're fighting the very same audience who funded their creation in the first place. EA is a company, we get it, but isn't it made up of humans? Do any of them actually enjoy video games? That's unfair. At some point, it's clear that developers somewhere have passion for their projects. Battlefield 5 garnered controversy that itself stirred more controversy for historical inaccuracy that seemed to offend people from all angles. But even so, it's regarded as a massive game with lots of content for those who are willing to pass certain elements. It also maintains some viewership as audience want to unveil the world of content without supporting some aspect of EA. Again, parts of the game may feel unfinished, but I'm not sure anymore if that's unique to EA or if major publishers just don't have to care because a cult following will pay anyone for their niche. So long as they push microtransactions, the game will make money without gameplay. Speaking of which, Battlefield 5 was honored with the addition of microtransactions about 5 months post-launch. This wasn't a surprise, but that kind of makes the community sound battered. Being excited to only have to pay for cosmetics hurts when I remember any old school fighter or RTS or just any damn game that was sold with the primary intention of being a game. Oh, good. I'm happy to end on a slightly more positive note. Titanfall 2 also falls into the category of lots of content if you're willing to wade for it, though it's held to a higher regard than most of EA's other titles. The company's failures are most evident to me as the title initially struggled at release in spite of a warm reception from impressed players. This may have something to do with the fact that the original Titanfall was Xbox exclusive while its sequel was not, but whose job is it to get that information out there again? Any criticism levied against the game tends to focus on a lack of originality, the reliance on microtransactions, and the short campaign. EA, though, has famously stated that linear games are no longer popular, so they have absolutely no reason to fund a linear campaign. Interestingly, the game later experienced a strong resurgence on Steam, an entirely different publishing platform. I can't help but wonder what the title would have become if EA had stepped back and let the creative process flow rather than stifling passion for pennies.
I guess ultimately, if EA really wants feedback, then here we go. Things that would be cool. A cart, so I didn't have to add all of that up myself. Customer service that was capable of doing more than following a simple script. A shred of transparency. But in all seriousness, allow for creative game mechanics that don't require developers to wring cash out of us at every turn. Imagine if you could build hype for a game that was sustained even past the game's release. Imagine Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. Linear games can be kick-ass, but that takes time, space, and money because it requires an actual creative process. Skim a little off of the top of those billions of dollars and invest in a game that has a less than 1% chance of success, even if you don't know if that's 1 in a million or 1 in a trillion. Make the same gamble that you expect us to do. Don't just pretend to listen. Do the damn job that we all pay you to do. Publish good freaking games, dudes. But we know that EA can't even be asked to establish what gambling is, so they're always just going to feel like some robot looking for the next legal loophole. Their approach to video games feels almost as algorithmic as Google's did. I try to wish everyone the best, but honestly I hope this fails for them miserably. I hope they can come out on top, but by doing something significantly more positive than encouraging children to shell out all of their cash and shaming adults for being concerned about that. Well, I feel better, though, so thanks humans. Go take a nap. Tell your ducks you love them. Peace.